Dr. Ponseti's son, William, William's son, Chris, William's daughter, Diana, and her husband, Isaac, and their children, Noah and Megan, have joined us today. In addition, Dr. Ponseti's grandson, Jorge Ignacio Ponseti, has traveled from Germany to be with us here today. William Ponseti lives near San Francisco and is responsible for General Electric's high technology instrumentation and fiber optic communications products in the western region of the United States. William Ponseti.
Thank you all for coming here today to honor my father. I enjoyed being in his presence immensely. He gave me many, many meaningful gifts. As a young child, I recall sitting on his lap as he read the Aesop fables to me. He brought back ancient Roman coins from Spain for me to classify. He taught me how to classify these coins with books that he gave me. His intent was to give me an education. I learned a lot about Roman history. I learned about the Roman emperors and some significant parts of each of their reigns. He gave me a stamp collecting outfit. It was geared toward teaching me world geography. At the age of 4, when I was 4 years old, he bought snow skis for me. Dad used to ski in the Pyrenees in Spain, and he introduced me to skiing at the age of 4. He took me to the old golf course here in Iowa City, and I would ski down those very tall slopes at the time. Looking at them now, they're almost flat, but to me they were mountains at the time. He took me water skiing. He played tennis with me. We went canoeing on the Iowa River. We went fishing on the river and also on the lakes in Minnesota. As a boy, about 8 or 10, I became interested in golf. And when I was at 12 or 13 years old, he had a resident by the name of Gene Smoley. Gene was a good golfer, and he arranged for Gene to take me out and teach me how to play golf, some of the finer points. We played golf quite a bit, and Dad decided he wanted to join us. So somehow Dad arranged to buy a set of golf clubs, and he was a good athlete, by the way, but he'd never learned golf, and his attempt at golf was really not so wonderful. He had a lot of whiffs and left and right and so forth, so he ended up giving his golf clubs away and said to me as he walked with me as I played golf, he said, "I agree with Mark Twain, golf is a good walk spoiled." He taught me to appreciate the great outdoors. Being with him was a class in nature. He identified flowers with their English names and also their Latin names. He carried a book to ID the flowers that he didn't know. He would point out geological formations to me and espoused what period they were from. He taught me how to identify volcanic rock and explained how striations were formed in rock. He showed me how the glaciers formed valleys in etched rock. I learned much from my father. He wanted to expose me to knowledge and experiences and growth. In 1968, I joined my father and Helena. We went to Spain, and he took me on a walk in Barcelona. We went through the streets where he grew up, and he wanted to show me where his boyhood was. And we went through plazas, and he took me into the cathedral. He showed me the Roman wall around the city. And he took me into a building, a large, old building. And we were standing there, and he said, "Do you know where we are right now?" I said, "No." He said, "You're standing in the spot where Christopher Columbus presented the Indians to Queen Isabella in 1493. He was a student of whatever he did. He was a great inquisitive learner. Prior to visiting a country or a city where he hadn't been, he researched its history, its architecture, its museums, He was never a tourist wherever he went. He had a vast network of friends worldwide, and wherever he traveled, he not only had the companionship of his lovely wife, Elena, but also the enriching engagement of professional and personal friends. Shortly after I graduated from college, I visited Helena and Dad in Iowa City. I looked at my father as one who knew everything. So I said, "Dad, what should I do with some extra money that I may have? How should I invest it?" He said, "Well, let's go sit down at the dining room table. We'll discuss this." So we sat down, and he proceeded to write down on a piece of paper with a pen. He said, "Well, we have stocks and bonds, real estate." And he paused for a moment, took his pen, slammed it down on the table, and he said, "Damn it, invest in friends and you'll be a wealthy man." Good advice. When I was a boy, he gave me a Springer Spaniel puppy. I named her Desi. She was my dog, but she was a family pet. But most evenings, in the early evening, you would see her sitting at the corner of the yard, looking down the street. And when she saw my father rounding the corner, he'd run to her, wagging this little tiny stubby tail and talking to her as she did. Dad had a great sense of humor also. Many of you knew him, know this. In 1996, my daughter Diana gave birth to her son. And I called my dad and Elena to tell him that you have a new grandson. He said, "Oh, what's the child's name?" I said, "They named him Noah." Dad said, "Oh, the fellow with the boat." Dad enjoyed life and he worked very hard. He had a spark of joy in his personality. He took us on many vacations as a family, mostly hiking in the mountains. In 1995, he rented a cabin in Oregon. And we were hiking Mount Jefferson one day and had a meal and dinner that night and some conversation. And Dad and Helena excused themselves to go to bed. And I had found some CDs in this cabin. So I quietly put on a waltz. Well, in a few moments, there was a big disturbance, and I turned, and there was a commotion, and I turned around and looked, and there are Dad and Helen laughing and smiling while they're waltzing down the hall in their pajamas. They were a very well-matched couple, and many times he said to me, "What a wonderful woman Helen is."